All right. Let's start right here on the last section of chapter 1. We're looking at 1.6, which is describing pairs of angles. We have right here several vocabulary terms that we're going to look at. And I left them blank because, fortunately enough, they are all listed in the student journal. So let's start off with angles that are complementary. Okay, complementary angles right here are two positive angles whose measures have a sum of 90 degrees, meaning that they add up to 90 degrees. If you look at the diagrams right here, in the first one, angles 1 and angles 2 happen to be right next to each other. They share a common ray, as you can see right here. How do I know they're 90 degrees? As you can see that there is this little square that shows up, and that is the symbol once again for a 90-degree angle or a right angle. Okay. So they could be right next to each other, and we'll talk about a term called adjacent shortly, or they could be split apart, and I can say right here in this example that angle A and angle B are complementary because they add up to 90 degrees. Let's take a look at the next term, supplementary angles. Now, supplementary angles are two angles that add up to 180 degrees. So, same thing. If you look in the first diagram right here, angles 3 and 4 are adjacent to one another, meaning they're right next to each other. They share a common ray. If you look, there's this line. Supplementary angles form 180, which happens to be a straight line. In the second diagram right here for supplementary angles, angle C and angle D are not together, but they add up to equal 180. Therefore, they are supplementary. Let's go ahead and move along. Our next term, adjacent angles. It says complementary and supplementary angles can be adjacent or non-adjacent. The main thing about adjacent angles is that they are two angles that share a common vertex and side, but have no common interior points. You may have heard the fact that two students being adjacent to each other, or two houses are adjacent to each other. That means that they are right next to one another. Put there, typed out in blue, adjacent, think of next to or side by side. So in this first diagram right here, it shows that we have 5 and 6. Those two angles are adjacent because they share this common side or array. Angles 7 and 8, they are split apart, and therefore they are non-adjacent angles. Moving along, linear pairs and vertical angles. Linear pairs, well, inside the word linear is line. So what that could tell you is that linear pairs are, well, two adjacent angles are linear pair when their non-common sides are opposite rays. The angles in a linear pair are supplementary. Because remember I just mentioned before that if it's a straight line, it happens to be a 180 degrees. All right, so linear pairs are two angles that add up to 180, but they are also side by side. The next thing right here, we take a look at our vertical angles. The main thing to remember about vertical angles is that opposite angles are congruent. So in this diagram right here, I could say that angles 3 and angle 6, they're opposite of each other. They equal one another or are congruent because I don't know how many degrees they actually are. And angle 4 happens to be congruent to angle 5. Because in this one diagram we have multiple angles that are pairs of angles that are congruent, I separate them by using one arc for 3 and 6, and I put a double arc for angles 4 and 5. And so that's how I know that those two particular angles are congruent, not all four, or whatever the case may be. Let's go ahead and move along and take a look at some problems. All right, so on number 1, it says name pairs of adjacent complementary angles. And you are going to use both of these diagrams together. All right. It says name pairs of adjacent. So remember, if it's adjacent, the angles are, once again, they are next to each other. It might be a combination of angles, not just one angle that you see. So it looks like right here, it says adjacent complementary. And also remember, complementary means that they add up to 90 degrees. So what are two angles that add up to 90 degrees? What I see right here in this diagram happens to be angle POT, and we have angle TOS. All right, so name a pair of adjacent complementary angles. We say angle POT, and don't forget the middle letter happens to be the vertex, and angle TOS. 75 plus 15, that adds up to 90 degrees. There are some that happen to be non-adjacent that are complementary. Maybe you could take a look at this. I'll give you a moment. See if you could figure out which ones are non-adjacent. All right. Non-adjacent would be angle POT and angle LJK. Those would be non-adjacent complementary angles. Let's go ahead and take a look at number 2. It says name the pair or pairs of non-adjacent supplementary angles. Remember, if they're non-adjacent, they are not next to each other. You may have several answers right here. One answer would be angle LJM and angle, well, if LJM is 105, I need for something other angle to add up to 180. So another one would be LJM, and we can go ahead and say 105 plus 75. That right there will get me 180 degrees. So we can go ahead and say angle POT. We can say that angle LJM and angle QOR work as well, because this is 75. All right. So those two right there work out. Are there any more? There could be. Maybe give you a moment, see if there's something that you can find. The last one, which would be a hard one, would be angle KJL and angle SOQ. Because if you look right here at angle SOQ, 90 plus 75, that's 165. Angle KJL is 15, so that works as well. All right, let's move along. Let's take a look at number 3. It says find the angle measure. So on a problem like this, once again, important to make sure that you write an equation. we're going to use the angle addition postulate right here to help us along with this. It says that angle A is complement of angle B, so that should tell me that these two angles equal 90 degrees. So angle A is 36, so what I can go ahead and do right here, say that angle A plus the measure of angle B is equal to 90. So let's go ahead, since I know what angle A is, that's 36, plus angle B equal to 90, you go ahead and subtract 36 to both sides, and angle B happens to be equal to 54. And there's the measure of angle B. If we take a look at number 4, similar ideas. Angle C and angle D are supplements of each other, meaning that they equal 180. So I could say angle C plus angle D is equal to 180. Since they actually gave us the angle measure, one of them, I can go ahead and put angle C plus 117 is equal to 180. We go ahead and subtract 117 to both sides, and angle C is equal to 63 degrees. All right, next up on number 5. So it says find the measure of each angle. They're not telling you whether they are supplementary or complementary, but you should be able to figure that out. Number 5 right here, I look at angle A, or BAD for bad. This one right here has this symbol, so that should tell you that they're complementary. All right, so let's take our angles. Angle BAC, 10x plus 22. We need to take that. We'll add that with the adjacent angle right here, angle CAD, 7x plus 34. And both of those combined is equal to 90 degrees. So we're just going to have to solve this out. And then we have ourselves 17x plus, right here, 56 is equal to 90. We go ahead and solve things. We'll subtract 56 to both sides and end up with 34. And divide both sides by 17, and x is equal to 2. Now, you may wonder, well, why was I just waiting there? Because we actually didn't find the answer. Remember, take a look at what the question is asking you for. Find the measure of each angle. So the last thing right here, to find the measure of each angle, you better make sure you take this 2 and plug it in to each part of the equation. And so angle BAC, if you take 2 and you plug it in, 10 times 2 is 20, plus 22 is 42. The next one is find angle CAD, and plug 2 into the equation. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 34 is 48. And there you have it. And if you add them both up, they equal 90, which tells me that everything works out beautifully. For number 6, I'll start you off right here. These two angles happen to be, what do we call this? If we see a line like that, they are a linear pair. And remember, linear pairs add up to 180. So let's take a look. Let's take 2 of the equations, or the angles. We got 6x minus 5. That's angle EFH. If I add angle HFG, which is 12x plus 5, this needs to be equal to 180. All right, so that right there is your linear pair. There's your setup. You solve for x. Simplify things out, and then go ahead and get your answer. Okay. Negative 5 plus positive 5 is 0, so we got ourselves 6x plus 12x. 18x is equal to 180. Divide both sides by 18, and x is equal to 10. You can go ahead and plug the rest in and get your answer for angle EFH and HFG. All right. Finally, right here at the end, we want to identify linear pairs that include angle 1. Okay. Linear pairs that include angle 1. So you have to make sure right here that angle 1 is in your answer. There's two solutions that we could use. Remember, two angles that create and form a straight line. So I can go ahead and say angle 1 and angle 4 is one of them. We also have angle 1 and angle 2. Those two angles form linear pairs. Next up, number 8. Identify the vertical angle. So there could be several vertical angles. And remember, vertical angles are think two lines that intersect, and then think of the opposite. One that I stand out right here is angle 1 and angle 3. Another one, we've got right here angles 2 and angle 4. There are a few more. You could see them also down in this section. Hopefully you get them. Right here now, remember, if it helps you, you see that there's a lot of intersections. But if I were to maybe like highlight this as such, you could see right here, angle 7 and angle 10 work. We have, there's a lot more. We have angle 5 right here and angle 8. We could do, if I take a look at this angle 6 and how that's formed, we could say angle 6 and angle 9. And I think we have listed them all now. All right. We're on the last part right here, number 9. It says, are angle 6 and angle 7 a linear pair? So I'm taking a look right here at angle 6. I'm looking at angle 7. And that does not look like it forms a straight line. So this would be a big old no. Okay. Those two angles does not form a linear pair, does not form a line. Okay. So we could say angle 6 and angle 7 does not form a straight angle. And remember, we should know that a straight angle is one that happens to equal 180 degrees. And I'll go ahead and just write it out. All right. So that concludes chapter 1.